Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. I am your host, Andi Clark, and today we have with us Shauna B. And I know that I can't do Shauna justice in introducing herself, so we will start off with Shauna introducing herself to all of you. So thank you for being with us today, Shauna.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share and see how I can help other people that they're not alone. So it's super.
Yeah, well, your story, just when we were talking before this, and your story is similar to mine in the one sense of our kids with their outbursts and stuff. And I know I felt alone. I was like, yes, another mom like this. So if we can help other moms not feel alone, that would be amazing. So let's start off with just a really quick and dirty explanation about or description about like who you are as a mom and what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, my name is Shauna B. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I am a single mom of three, 18, 10, and 8, two
Mm.
boys and a girl. I am busy mom. Busy mom. I like to be going outside. I like to be outside. I like to play sports. I like to spend time with my kids, whether that's game nights or planning some cool adventure, either on a plane or somewhere you can drive. I'm also a life reinvention coach and motivation coach for single and divorced moms to help them really recharge themselves so they can show up their best self in the best way for their kiddos. That's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. So my mind just went to all kinds of places with what you just said. I did have just a total random question off the top. Is you said game nights. What is a favorite game with your kids?
Right now it's Clue, but Simpsons Clue is
Hmm.
like my middle guy's thing. Like anytime I'm like, what game do you want to play? He's like, let's play Clue. I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we every Tuesday afternoon we get together with another homeschooling family and they just all play games. And so it's been cool having the other kids. They're all sharing which games they all like. There's 6 of them. So it's tons of fun. Tons of fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So kids with big emotions. Where do we begin? Where do you want to begin in telling us your story about, like, let's start from the beginning. Like, how long was he born that way, or he or she, sorry, born that way?
I have multiple. I have multiple kiddos with it. So I would say my oldest, I'll start with my oldest. So
Mhm.
my oldest, oh man, I'm like, I would say preteen years.
Mm.
So like around 10, 9, 10, I started noticing a lot of outbursts and like 0 to volcano erupting in like a snap of like a total snap. And you're like, what is happening? Like you have to adjust to the really high emotions and yelling and all the things. And it's like it was hard for him to slow down. He also has ADHD and he has a really high like impulsiveness of doing things and then realizing it when he's in the middle of it, which then in turn at that point sometimes he would just be like, well, why am I stopping now? I'm already in trouble. So, and it's like this whole thing where it just carries through. But it was an eye opener for me because it was really difficult to have to like decompress the situation and try to get emotions down to even speak to them, because anything you say when they're like that, you could talk to a wall. It makes zero difference. But just trying to get the emotions down. But then I remember asking myself, how am I supposed to guide him through this? This is crazy. This is bananas. Like, I don't even know where to even begin with this and how draining also it was. So it started and it went for it was really heavy. Like, we're talking about any time he wanted to do something and it was like a no, he would woodpecker. So what I mean by that is like ask, but like wait 5 minutes, ask again, wait 2 minutes, ask again. And it would go for hours. It would not be 10 times. This is like 500 times of asking me the same thing to try to get me to change my mind. And then it would escalate. And I knew it was coming. And so it was like, here we go. We're going to move through this tunnel together. It's going to be a circus, and having to figure out those tools. That lasted from until he was 16. So
Yeah.
for 6 years of that. And it was intense. And in those 6 years, he went from my shoulder height to 6'4".
Yeah.
So that's also a weird thing for a mom to, you're talking to your kid and then you're talking to a small man. And it's just like it's just such a mind mess with you of doing this process and parenting them and with these big emotions. But then as they're changing, it's just a total, it's crazy. Like you have to adapt in like a million different ways. But then once his brain developed enough to where he could actually start doing it, all of those seeds that I planted and things that I was working through started to click into place. And so it was a thing that I had to do with him, was practicing reminding myself, this is for the long game. This is the long game. This is not a quick fix. This is not, that is not realistic here. I need to give him the tools that he needs now, even if it doesn't seem like it's working. I just need to keep repeating them. I just need to keep repeating them. And I had to get a support system to help me, because can't even tell you how many times I was crying on the couch and saying I wanted to move to South America, because I'm like, this isn't, is this anybody else like this? Is this normal? Am I by myself? Like, who does this? Is this a thing now? Like all these questions. And then what did I do? Did I do something? Did I not teach him right? Like, why is he big and doing this? Like so many questions with my first one. It was really, really hard, emotionally, energetic, and like energy wise, being motivated, like all kinds of things. It was like the goods were really good and the bads were really bad, right? I mean, we're talking like he never hit me, but he would punch holes in the walls. He'd get right up in my face. He'd be screaming at me, and I would have to hold my ground and just anything that was a rule, forget it. He's going to challenge me, and challenge me big, like not just challenge me as normal kiddo challenge, like challenge me big. And I'm like, okay. How am I going to do this? You know, and I had to really focus on myself and recharging myself so I could be strong enough to handle those situations and not break down and lose my business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took a lot of practice, and I had to call in the village, and I had to, you know, I got a behavioral therapist that could guide me through the situations. And in my state, when you're over 13 years old, the 13-year-old can say if they want to go or not. And so he went until he was 13, and then he's like, nope. And he decided not to do it. But I still continued to help him through her. She's still with us today. She's like our family person. But you know, and then not only with me, I would have my own people to call on and family if I needed to take a break because of how taxing it was, but making sure that I could recharge. And so he is now almost 19 years old, and massive growth, massive difference, that those aren't happening anymore. And we have a code word, which we learned a long time ago, that if it starts to get too much and it's just going to end up really ugly and yelling, we have a code word that he will say. And I'm like, and I just know, regardless of what I want to say or what I want to teach, it's stop and walk away once the word is said. And we still practice that to this day, but it never gets to a point where it's like out of control and then the word comes out. It's almost like he recognizes it and he's like, this isn't going well, says the word, and it's like, okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's really hard because you just want to teach the thing and you just can't do it, so you have to walk away. But I'm just like, okay, I'll talk to him later. I'll talk, you know, again, reassuring myself, I'll talk to him later. It's not going to make any difference now, it will make a difference later. And then moving to my 10-year-old, his started, I think his started when he was 4, but I didn't recognize the signs. I didn't see them. I didn't understand. I was just more like, oh, something must be, you know, there would be disruption with maybe parental visitations or something big that was happening. Like I had a surgery one time, like something like that. And so I was like, maybe this is just a response to the big thing that is happening. And so kind of like work with it. And then it started to be more frequent and more frequent and more frequent. And I was like, okay, like this is different. And his are different. His are the throwing things, the hitting me, the screaming at me, the swearing at me, the pushing me around, the very physical. So then it was interesting for me because I'm like thinking my first one was like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. This is so hard. Who does this? Then I get to my second one and I'm like, okay, like I, what? Like, so we're just gonna next level it because I could handle this over here. So we're gonna next level this. Okay. So, you know, then I have to like not start over, but I have to start over differently because this kiddo, you know, each kid is different, but this kiddo needs different things. So it's like, okay, now I know how to handle this stuff, but how do I handle the physical stuff? Or like getting in between the siblings, because sometimes the focus will go to the sibling instead of like me. And it'll just be like, now I got to protect brother or protect the sister from like literally a reactive action. And there is so many tools that I have in my toolbox now. Like I had a bunch of tools from my older one in my toolbox, and then now this one, I'm like, okay, this is different. Yes, I'm using all the same tools, but it wasn't working for him. It wasn't working for him in the sense of either, I don't know if it was like the delivery or how, or if he was registering it. I'm not entirely sure, but it wasn't working. We even did, I can't remember what the therapy was, but we did this therapy where it's like through play, where you play and you give all these compliments and praise, and then you start giving commands, and then the commands will eventually, they'll get used to the commands, and then it'll work, right? That didn't work for him. It needed to be more extensive. I mean, I joined parenting courses on this stuff, and like I took many, many classes and courses to try to figure out what I could piece together at least that would work for him, because what was happening wasn't working. Again, I had to remind myself, it is not a quick fix. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. I know this is the long game. And what I really need to do is praise everything that he does do that is differently. For example, he starts losing it. I call it, volcano erupts, right? He's losing it. He's like coming after to push me or whatever, but he doesn't hit me and he only pushes me. That's a win. That's
Yep.
a win. And it's really hard when you're in the moment and you're learning all these tools and things that you're supposed to do. It's so hard as a parent to be like, yeah, but he didn't hit me. Like that takes practice to learn that as a win, because you're like, this is still bad. Yes. Okay. It's challenging. It's going to be challenging. But like for me, I had to accept like this is my fight, in a way of my kiddo is struggling. My kiddo is struggling with how to handle these emotions. They're very big. They need to learn how to move through them, how to recognize them, how to know what to do with that. Or later, when they're big, it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. And as you said too, I mean, your other child got taller and bigger too. So we need to, yes, it's a long game, but we also are on a bit of a timeline,
Yeah.
and we want to get this before they are taller and stronger than us. And a lot of really bad damage can happen.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, this is the thing with these kids too, is there's different pieces of a puzzle and
Mhm.
how those pieces fit in different. So some pieces might work with both of them, but maybe not the same order or in the exact same way. And trying to figure that out is so difficult. And there was something that you had said earlier about your first son as well, is that having the ADHD, so having the attention, the inhibition, and then a big part of the inhibition of the not being able to stop themselves is actually the nonverbal working memory. So it's that piece, and these are all your base executive functioning skills that the school doesn't understand.
Mhm.
And so the school keeps trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, but this child doesn't have the nonverbal working memory where they can remember the image, remember the thoughts, remember the situation, that when something happens similar again, they don't have that image to go back to of, oh, this is what I was taught of how to do things. And where their attention goes through. And that's a big part of inhibition. And I find with when somebody has that inhibition where they can't stop hitting, where they can't stop yelling, where they can't stop doing something, touching everything, whatever it is, they can't stop it. We are brought up with this parenting style of, if you just tell them to do something, they should do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people are like, well, why don't you just tell them to do this? Or you get
Yeah.
face looks, judgment and looks on people's faces of like judging you because you're not just telling them to do it and your kid's not just listening. And the schools seem to expect that that's how it should be as well. So did you have some schools are supportive? Did you have, you're laughing. So how is the support from the schools?
Wow. My oldest, that was really bad. It was really hard and it was really
Mhm.
bad. He was in one school district, and I was having to leave work and go get him every single day because they were having different expectations for him that he was not capable of doing. And he had an IEP and everything. And
Mhm.
I was mama bear big time because I'm like, you guys are not following this. Like I was doing all this stuff and I'm like, how many times do I have to beat a dead horse to try to get him the support that he needs that's not doing it? I'm pulling him from the school district. We're moving and we're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So we moved and we went to a different school. And the second that I got to this school, I just was crying. Like, oh my God, like I wish I would have found you guys like 2 years ago. And like I couldn't even compose myself with all of the craziness that was happening at the other school district and with how supportive they were of giving him the chance and figuring out a way that works for him and that knowing sometimes these things are just going to happen and he just has to move through it but in like within safety of whatever. He has
Yeah.
outbursts and he yells out in class constantly, so are we going to punish him every time he does it when he's incapable of stopping, or are we going to try to work with him to see, okay, if you have anything, pausing, whatever. And depending on your teacher, it would be really good. There, like, so his last 3 years in elementary school were really good once I moved him to this new one. They were really good. As soon as he went into middle school, it went right back. It was like PTSD flashback. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, so I started having conversations with him. I'm like, okay, bud, this is not good for any of us. Like, I'm stressed out, you're stressed out, your teacher's stressed, like everybody's stressed out. This is not good. I don't feel like you're getting the support that you need fully, and I'm going to bat for you. I mean, talk about meetings, holy Moses. Like it was like every week I'm like meeting with this person, meeting with that person. And I'm like tired of saying the same thing over and over again. And some of them are like, oh, he has an IEP. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm
Yeah.
like, so next step for you, bud, do you want to homeschool or do you want to online school? Because I'll go get trained to homeschool right now. I can do that right now. I'll get certified. We can do the thing. Let's do whatever is best for you. And he's like, well, let's try homeschooling. So I went and got certified. I started doing curriculums, I have friends that are in the homeschool community, thank goodness, because they were like so helpful to me of like what to kind of look for and how to do things and stuff, since I'm just kind of diving right into it. And we did homeschool for seventh grade for the rest of seventh grade. I think he got through like a quarter, maybe a semester, and I was like, nope. And we finished the seventh grade year with me. And then eighth grade, we had to reevaluate because of all these large charged emotions, and school is a very raw place for him. He did not like it. He had no positive connection with it. And now here I'm his mom, his safe space where he can do all this stuff. Now we're getting charged emotions in school and not in school and like all over the place. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to figure this out together? And so we found an online program where he's at home, but I'm not his teacher.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, let's try this. Are you willing to try it? And he's like, yes. And he's been in that online program ever since. And it like major shift in just with us in all of that stuff. And so it's been a process of figuring it out. I think for me, in the beginning, I was more worried, like, man, I'm just like, he's been in public school this whole time and I'm just literally like, here we are, we're going to do homeschool. And this is what homeschool is without any kind of like deschooling or anything. And then going to online school, but doing that and working with him and checking in the midst of all the things, eventually we found his path. And it wasn't like years, right? It was months. It was like 6, 7 months, but we still found a path for him to do it. And he's doing it. And that,
Yeah.
that was what was important to me. Because he was refusing to do school because he wasn't getting the support. He's like, what? In his mind, he's like, why do I even care? These people don't care about me. Why am I caring about my grade? Which is a huge deal. And that was the thing that broke me, because I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are you teaching students if you don't care to show them that you care about their grade and you care about their outcome? If you're just thinking that they're just being a jerk when he's not.
The behavior, yeah, thinking that these kids are behavior kids. And so a couple of things that you said. So I pulled my son from school too in grade 4 and had to figure it out. So first, let's go back to the IEP, because then I do have a homeschooling question as well. So IEPs, the thing with an IEP though, is I do feel as well, like the language we have to use in IEPs, the speak, it actually is more of a band-aid. It's like, well, let's give this kid this band-aid to help this, but they're still not diving into why. They're not diving into the root. They're not diving into, which it could be many things. It can be traumas. It can be all kinds of different stressors, nervous system dysregulation, or what's dysregulating their nervous system. It can be executive functioning. Like the list goes on. I mean, everybody who listens to this knows I'm always going on about all of the different things it can be, and they don't dive into that. It's like, let's help this child when they're in the red, which is why I pulled my son, is they wouldn't deal. I'm like, but he's really bored. And they're like, well, but he didn't get into gifted. And we found out it was that he's very ahead in subjects, but can't write it down on paper, was masking, which was executive functioning, was masking executive functioning struggles, which a lot of these kids that are ahead do. So ADHD, quite often those kids are quite ahead. Their brains are firing and their brain needs to work in a different way. And it doesn't fit in the box of the school system. And they want to only work with them when they're in the red and not realize why. And let's have some different ways to work with this child. But you do get these amazing schools. You get some amazing teachers like you did find in those elementaries, but not everywhere. So yeah, just, and you're nodding your head and me agreeing with an IEP, but let me like ask you, like with IEPs, like, do you feel that they're a band-aid, and the way that they're worded, like not all teachers understand and not all teachers even know that they have an IEP, and they don't understand the legal speak. Like, so for my son, what had we fought for one? It would have said that he has a disability in written expression. But what the heck does that mean? Because there's so many different disabilities of written expression that the teacher doesn't know how to handle that. And what can this child do and not do? And it ended up not even being a learning disability. It ended up being executive functioning, which once we worked on that, he was able to write by hand. So you have lots to say on this. What do you have to say?
So, okay, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think IEPs are, they say it's a way to protect the kid, but I don't think that it is at all.
I think they're crap too. And I want to just pull on
they're
out
total
there.
crap.
I'm so grateful you feel this way. Yeah, like,
yeah, I think they're crap, and I think they say it, they sell it as it's to protect your child, but I honestly think it's to protect the system. And I think that it's to show we're doing something here because we granted your IEP and we said XYZ and we're giving these tools to them and la, la, la. And I think it's just to protect them from, you know, whatever, lawsuits and all the things.
yes.
My IEP with him did 0 for him.
Yeah.
0. Like, they even offered, like, oh, we have an executive functioning class he can take and blah. And I'm like, by the time he was 12 and he was already hating school, not thinking anybody supported him, and now you want him to go to an IEP school or IEP class that's supposedly supporting him. What do you think he's going to think about that?
And if they have, okay, I'm just going to say executive functioning struggles happen with every single kid. Every single person has executive functioning struggles. And the more that we're having, like, the more attention and focus struggles that kids are having nowadays is unbelievable, and perception struggles and inhibition is just unbelievable, that every child needs it. So to just have one special class instead of actually giving it to every teacher to be doing this with every class from kindergarten blows me away. It just blows me away.
It needs to be something that needs to be taught, period. Like, it needs to be part of like a core curriculum.
It's not just about the academics too. When a child is struggling, if they can't make it to do this test without exploding, then they shouldn't have to do that test. Because why should, and I'm literally doing a lesson right now for my support circle on learning ladders, but it is like, no two kids are the same academic level, the same learning style, the same interest in any subject at any grade. And the thing is if the child is struggling to get through these tests and to do these things, it's most likely not the tests. It's something else going on, that if you stop those tests and stop those things and go back and look at why are they struggling to do tests? Why are they giving them meltdowns with their homework, with stuff that we know this child is actually capable of doing, but they're not able to do it? Then we stop doing the thing that's making them implode, and we figure out, how is your brain working? How can we support you? How can we get it so that doing this homework isn't hard, isn't challenging, because then academically they can catch up. But if we're constantly forcing this academic thing that's constantly putting them in this total stress state, in this total turmoil, and we're not helping support the part of the brain so that they can eventually do tests and they can eventually do their homework, then they can eventually catch up. But if we're constantly, it's like hammering a nail down. If they're constantly hammering that nail down is going to be stuck in the board and can't actually get out.
I actually have an example of that. So, because I call it mama bearing, but because I'm like going to all these meetings and like saying all the things, they're just like, we just don't know where he's at. And I'm like, you're not going to, because when you throw a test at him that has 20 questions, he's going to freeze and he's not going to do it. And he's just going to write answers down to be done and hand it to you. And he doesn't even know what he answered because he probably didn't even read half the questions because he's too overwhelmed and he's out of there. So I took him to this testing center because they test differently. So I took him to this test because I wanted to test it for myself before I really went in to fight for him, you know? So I'm like, I tested him, and how they did it was they had 2 questions on a screen at a time.
Brilliant. My son would
Right?
be able to do that. That's why I
He
homeschool.
got he got like a 98%. I'm like, hello. And so I'm like, is there any way we can do these tests different? I'm like, well, we can change his tests. But they would change it to like 10. He's
Right.
still out. He's still out at 10. I'm like, okay, great. Thank you for changing the test. You took a step in the right direction of trying to help him. And 10's not working. So how do we do this? And then it goes back to, it's too, like, they didn't say this. What they're saying is it's too much work to do that for one kid, but I totally agree with you. It's probably for half the classroom. So why would you not try to do it to see where they actually are instead of overwhelming them, right? And so once he did that and I showed where he actually was, they were like, oh, this is not reflective of anything. And I'm like, yeah. And my kid is very connected to if he feels like somebody cares about him. Like if you believe in him, he is going to work his buns off to try to show you that he can do it, even if it's a struggle. If he thinks that you don't care and you think that he's just another kid that's having behavioral issues and he's not going to make it anyway, so blah, 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 whatever you're thinking, he is not going to do anything. He is not going to do anything. So there's more here than that. And sometimes they would look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I have to build a relationship with your kid. I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, just not going to say anything here because it's not going to be nice. So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
you are.
And that's the thing. So I didn't even get to the IEP level because I was like, they were already fighting me and only wanted to work in the red. We did a private psycho ed eval. Grade 3, he tested grade 8 level math, but can't write the answers on paper. But you verbally ask him, oh my God, like he could have gone, she said she's ceilinged out. She's ceilinged out on a couple of other things too. Like he just, it's getting it from the head through his hand on paper. That it's the hand, it's a whole different brain work, but you ask him to do it with his voice, no problem.
That's
And
exactly how
these are
my
the
kid was with
things,
math.
like it just blows me away where we need to stop and see, why is this kid struggling? Why are we? So this brings me to my next thing with the homeschooling that you did, that you were mentioning. So where I live kind of blows my mind, but all I need to do to homeschool is write on a piece of paper that I will homeschool my child. I don't have to do anything with them. I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario, our whole province. All you have to do, and I know that it's different in every state. Some states actually have to follow curriculum, which my kid could not do. My other one is like, it's just fascinating. So I'm thinking of my other son who actually left the gifted program to come and homeschool. And I am seeing right now how much he struggles with starting things. He is, and his time sense and pacing, he thinks things are going to take him so long because he gets his brain, he thinks about all these steps and he makes everything really big in his head. And he's very black and white. So if there's anything for English lit or any of those things that needs him to actually, he cannot do an assignment if you read a book and ask him to say, what do you think this character might think? He goes, well, I'm not like, I don't know. He can't do it because he can't put words in somebody's mouth that he hasn't seen without asking them the question. His brain was
That's how my middle guy is. That's how
right,
my middle
very
guy is.
black and white. So it's fascinating. So we have been working too on planning and organizing themselves and working on time sense and pacing and working on him not being overwhelmed with assignments and realizing like not making something bigger than it is. That I have stopped looking completely on the academic side. And I'm like, this whole year we are focusing on you being able to plan and organize and actually work up to being able to get to do all of the work that's being asked of you, even though this kid's gifted. This kid's academically ahead. Like this stuff is easy for him, but he gets in his head where he can't even do almost 10% of the work that he's being given. So this isn't an issue at all of the academics. And that's the thing I struggle with school a lot, is it's the academics. So because of the way we're allowed to homeschool, I've taken the academics off I've taken the barriers of, okay, we have to do 40, this has 42 module or lessons in this, like however many modules. We need to do 2 lessons a week in order to get this done in the school year. I'm like, no, let's work first on you not seeing these as crazy big things that are scaring the heck out of you. Because if I have to get this one done this week and this other one done next week, but I haven't pulled it back enough. This learning ladder, I say we haven't gone enough steps down. Same thing what you were saying. They went to 10 questions, but you needed 2. This kid can get 98, 99% without studying or learning or reading if you give them 2. So I had to pull this down with my son to be like, okay, this thing is asking you to do 15 to 20 slides in your slide decks, freaking you out. Let's do 5.
Yeah.
5 for me. Yes, I can do that. Boom. Okay. And then we talk about, I break it down. How long did that take? How did it feel? All of this stuff. Okay, let's do another 5. And at the end, we've done the 15 to 20. It took us longer because we were talking about the mindset to it, the mental. How long will this take? We're talking about the things to work the executive functioning side, that part of his brain that's managing the work in order to do it. So the way that I can do that with homeschooling, there's 2 parts to that. So first off, are you able to, the way that your state allows? And the second piece I'd ask you is the mental side and the pressures from people. We are so brought up to believe that if this module is for his grade and it says that he has to do 15, 20 slides in a presentation for this project, like the mental thing is allowing ourselves to believe, no, he can just do 5. Or believing that he can take a lot longer to do this. It can take him 2 years to get this course done, but at the end of the 2 years, the goal isn't him actually knowing all the stuff. The goal is working through the fear of how long this should have taken to do each one, so that by the end, he's working at pace or even able to do it faster. So I guess those 2 questions. First off, does your state allow for homeschooling to be able to not necessarily go at grade level curriculum with what they're expecting? And I guess the second thing is how hard, as a parent who's going through stuff like this with a child, is it to say, hey, take that step down, go down those steps in the ladder, bring it from those 10 questions to the 2 questions.
So for my state, we had to take a course to be certified, and it tells you everything. Like it gives you all the information you need to know, like where to find curriculum, blah, 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 also after. So you're not just kind of like in the dark.
You have to follow curriculum.
No, you just have to have a curriculum. You have to have a curriculum. I mean, you could literally make it whatever you want. It just has to be a curriculum, but it can be whatever you want. It doesn't, the only thing that's required is a certificate that I would be certified, and you have to do testing. You have to do testing through in the year. They have to go for testing, and we didn't make it a full year before he went to online, so he never had to do that. But you have to go into testing just to see that we're actually teaching them something. It just has to prove that we're teaching them something.
My kid would freak out with the testing at the moment.
Totally.
He would freak out, and it would look like we weren't doing anything. Meanwhile, well, it depends on how they did the testing. They verbally asked him stuff. He's done microbiology and genealogy this last year and chemistry and physics, but he couldn't answer a question on the test, I bet.
Right. Yeah. So I never got to that part to have to fully investigate that to see how it even, like what it would even entail for him. I just knew that would have been, if we would have done 6 more months, then they would have done some 10. And I didn't know if it was gonna be like a lot of questions, if it's just 20, like I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do know the certificate and then testing once a year just to make sure that something is happening. And that was all the requirement needed. And then for me to, whatever he needed to break it down to do the thing was what needed to happen. Because this is for him to actually, like you said, be able to break it down enough where it's manageable step that he can take to do the thing, and practicing that until it gets easier. So then when, he does get like a bigger assignment, he's like, okay, I got the first 3 steps I think I can do or whatever. And then, okay, so we need to work on the last 2. Let's not even think about the last 2. Let's just think about the first 3. Almost like covering it up like I do with my daughter right now. If she has a homework assignment and she sees 20 questions on it, I have 2 pieces of paper that like literally swoop down into the first, sometimes it's all the way to 1 question. This is what we're doing right now. We're just doing this 1 question. And then I'll be like, how do you feel? You want to do number two? It's the same thing with my oldest. It would be like, we're doing one assignment. This is all the stuff we have to get done today. I wouldn't even have a pile of it, nothing. I would literally bring him one thing and I'm like, this is what we need to do. How do you feel? Want to do more? Yes. Okay. And then like, and we would get through if he was on a roll, like if he was hyper focused and we're like into tomorrow, great. We're going to keep going until he feels like he's done. And then when he's done, good, because there's some days where he's really on super focused, do all the things. And then there's some days where he's like, I got one assignment in me and I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Fine. You did like 20 assignments yesterday. So great.
And that's the thing too. I find it fascinating is that like we're expected that we should be on every single day. And there's days where we like kick butt and are majorly productive and almost like, and we do this with ourselves in our own work as adults too, is we almost feel that the days that we are like on 100%, we're feeling good, we get everything done, that we should be able to do that every single day. And that is a whole narrative too, a whole norm that we need to change. And same thing with my kids as we adjust it. Well, how are you feeling today? We move it on. And when my son, when I first took him out of school, and there'd be days, and still he did this actually last month, which he hadn't done in a while, where I came down and he was like laying on the couch, hanging out. And he's like, I turned off my computer. He goes, because I needed a break. I didn't have a brain. I couldn't focus. So I decided to sit here and do some breathing. I'm like, okay, go for it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel like you're on, you'll get a lot done. And when you're not like this day, you're not going to get anything done. So why fight it? But then there's me. I know I did this the other day for an hour and a half. I kept my desk, my office, because I homeschool my kids. I lost my office, is now in my bedroom. And I'm looking at my bed and I'm like looking at it going, you need to go and do your breathing. You need to go breathe for 20 minutes, whatever. It will actually recharge you. It'll clear your brain. It'll clear that whiteboard in your mind because you're not getting anything done. And I pushed for an hour and a half instead of taking 2 or 3 steps and taking that 20 minutes, which would have had me come back and actually be productive. And so we do this as adults and we do this with our kids.
What I do when I get like that is one of the things that I like to say to my clients is that your kiddos are going to see what you're doing before they hear you. And if you want to show them what you're teaching them, if you do it, they're gonna be like, oh, mom's doing that breathing thing on the couch. Then they're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna try it. You know what I mean? If they see you do it. So if I get like that, because I do, because it's life, right? If I get like that where I'm like, I'm gonna push through for the next, hour or whatever, I will like stop and I'm like, okay, are they like, they're watching me right now. And even when you think they're not paying attention, they're paying attention. They know what's going on. And so I'll stop and be like, what do I want to show them? Because I'm, really trying to work with them on this stuff. And I will do that. And I'm teaching them. And it just flips it around for me so fast. And then I go and do the thing. And then like you said, then you're like so much better afterwards because you took that time. But if you frame it in a way of teaching your kids, it's way easier for you to do the thing and not push through.
So much so. And that's it. Like I came down after that and I go, oh my God, guys. I'm like, I pushed for an hour and a half up in the office without a brain instead of doing breathing. And they looked at me and went, well, that was silly. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, like, what are you doing, Mom?
Right. And that's the thing though, is I told them that I did that too, because then it allowed them to see that I did it, even though I knew what I was supposed to do, even though they know that it was a silly thing to do. And I'm like, okay, so now I need to fix that right now because I finally caught myself. So this is where too with my kids is they know when they tell me they got sucked into something on their computer or they got distracted or they couldn't get off, they know that I am okay with it because I know that it happens and we support each other to be able to not have that happen in the future. Like, okay, well, was it something that you could put a app blocker on? I'm like, no, it was a work thing. Go, I need to. And they're like, hey, well, what can you do? Like, what plan? They're like, you have a plan.
Yeah.
That's always the thing, right? We always have a plan of how we can fix this in the future. And they're like, well, you need to adjust your plan. The plan the first time never works. You know that. I'm like, yeah, this is like iteration 3 of this plan, but we need to change it. We need to fix it so that I'll be better at it next time.
Yeah, I love that because you're teaching them that it's okay. Like, yep, I didn't do it. And that's still okay because you can still do it now and you can always improve and change it and do it better next time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And something you had said, so I wrote this down before talking, you said, the more I recharge, the more I can help. And I was like, this is fascinating because 2 interviews in a row. The last person I interviewed as well was a therapist who used to work in, like, I think it was more of a crisis center with kids. And she had said something profound, which was that she never met a kid who was struggling because the parent gave them what they needed to be okay.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Isn't that huge? Like, you never see, and this is the thing with parents, is for them to have that view of, because when you're saying the more I recharge, the more I can help. And it is. And the parent, well, the more I can help. And if you think to yourself, but I can push through it, which is what I was just saying earlier, is when you push through, and you know your brain's still not working and you can't do this. But if we think about it, we've never, ever, ever heard of a situation where a child is really struggling because the parent took time for themselves. Now, the parent can take time for themselves to recharge, and the child can still be struggling, but it's not because the parent took the time to recharge.
Correct.
Right. And those are two different things that I think we really have to make sure that parents are aware of, that we feel guilty for recharging when, as you said, the more you recharge, the more you can help. And they feel guilty for that. And if we help to reframe that and saying, have you ever met a child who was struggling because the parent took that time to recharge? And you don't. You actually model for your kids. They start seeing it and the things we actually want in order to help our kids. As you said, it may be the long game, right? I do have one that will not go to therapy. I have one that doesn't do breathing on a regular basis. I have one that goes to therapy, one that breathes on a regular basis, because my husband and I have modeled all of that. The other one hasn't yet, but he does it sometimes. And I think we are closer in this long game to him eventually going to a therapist. And it's the long game, but we're modeling it. We're modeling everything. He knows that both his dad, I do, and his other brother go to therapy. Even when we're feeling good, we go like once a month, once every couple of months when we're feeling really good, so that when stuff really starts piling up, we have them in our back pocket.
Yep.
He knows this. And we talk about this full on with our kids all the time, about why we go and how it's helping us, and all of these things, the breathing, all of the tools, the working on the executive functioning skills, pausing, I mean, you and I could probably have this huge list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Of all of these tools. And eventually they do. And those are the tools that we need to recharge. And our kids need to recharge, but they're not ever going to do it if we never do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're like passing a baton, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you're modeling is what they're gonna know by watching you, and you don't want to pass that to them, because then you're gonna be on the other side, like when they're an adult. Why are you doing this? And you need to recharge, and you da, da, da. And then you're like, I did that. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah.
Right? So amazing. All right, Shauna, we have covered so many amazing things today. Is there anything that you feel that, and it may not, it's not like a trick question, but is there anything that pops in your mind that you feel that the audience still needs to hear, that these parents need to hear, or anything that we haven't covered yet that you feel really would help out these parents of kids with big emotions?
I have two things. So one, to really understand that there are people out there that can be supportive and surround you in this time, that there are people out there. And sometimes when you just talk about it, you find those people and they come and help you. And it doesn't have to be a secret because you're not alone. You're alone because you're keeping it a secret. So find your people to help support you in that, because they're out there. The second thing is, when I say the more you recharge, the more you can help, that is super important. It does not have to be the big things like going away for a weekend and going on a trip, or even leaving your house. It doesn't have to be that. When you are constantly pouring into your kiddo who is struggling, because they require more pouring in. They don't have their prefrontal cortex developed like us, and they borrow it from us. So you're like double duty, right? You're giving them you, and you're giving yourself you. So you're kind of like overdriving for a little bit in order to get them through this. which makes it even more important to recharge. So try to look at the things that you can do from the space of where you are. It can literally be sitting in silence for 5 minutes of silence, putting headphones on so you can't hear anything because, sometimes our kiddos don't have the ability to be quiet. That's fine too, but find the thing that makes the quiet. Go into your room or the bathroom or wherever you can and just sit there for 5 minutes in silence. Maybe it's reading a book and it's only 10 minutes and it's not 45. But breaking those up and doing it throughout the day, little bits of 5, 10, 20s of little things that you can do during the day are going to make a humongous difference. Just you getting through the day, especially if things go sideways.
Absolutely. They all add up. Every time that you do that, think of it like a gym exercise for your muscles. So your nervous system is just like your muscles. You work them, they get stronger. So when you're working that calming, resting muscle, the more reps you do. So if we think of a gym set, 10, 15 reps, that could be 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Like if you did it even 3 minutes, if like 3 minutes is too long, you do it for a minute and a half, but you do it throughout the day, you're doing more and more and more in reps on that nervous system, the calming nervous system, which helps it to become stronger and less overpowered by the stress system. And over time, those start adding up and you start reacting different. You're able to switch faster into that resting, calmer state, faster and faster.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
You don't have anything to lose to try it.
Right. Right.
Zero risk here.
Yeah. Like 1 minute.
Yeah.
Right. It can be any amount of time. If 10 minutes is too much, if 5 minutes, 1 minute, do what you can. It's still a repetition in the gym. Like it's still an exercise, a quick little exercise, a circuit. Shauna, this has been amazing. So for those, I know you and I had spoke before that it was, if we can just help another parent, because you and I both fell alone going through this with this kid, like we both pulled a kid from school. I didn't even realize you had at that time. So like our stories are more similar, trying to figure out how do we navigate this. It's so lonely, as you said. So I know hopefully we have helped a parent feel seen and heard and know that they are not alone. So if anybody would like to listen, I know you have a podcast, you have some stuff, how can they find you? We will put the links as well in the show notes. So how can they find you?
They can find me on my podcast is Release Your Inner Power, and it's on whatever podcasting platform that you listen to. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I am on TikTok, I'm on something else, LinkedIn, I'm on all kinds of things. My business that I have is called Ignited Decisions. So if you look up Shauna B or Ignited Decisions, any of those things, you'll on all of those platforms, you'll find me. And feel free to email me and share me your story if you want to just talk about the story and that's it. I would love to be able to shed some light or help or just be like a supporting listening ear because I do know how hard and struggle it can feel. And so if you just need someone to talk to, you can talk to me. I can be one of your people that you have to vent to.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we will have all of your show notes down below for sure.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening. And yes, I am here to support you as well. We have our support circle membership group where we do have all kinds of parents just like you. You're more than welcome to join. The link for that as well is in the show notes. You are not alone in this. We are all here to support you. So reach out however you need, let us know, and we are there for you. And we'll see you in the next episode.